Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Annie and this is Unity Consciousness. Today we're going to be discussing an astrological event, a very extraordinary and interesting astrological event that occurred. I became aware of it just a few days ago and wanted to share it with you. I'm currently on a short vacation to Sedona, Arizona, and instead of getting on camera, I felt that the landscape would speak for itself. As you may or may not know, this is a very intuitive and mystical area where there are several vortexes of energy. So I'm tapping into that energy, hopefully with the hope of bringing that to you. Now, let's get started. On November 12th, Hawaii time, Haumea entered Scorpio. Haumea is a Kuiper Belt object which orbits the other side of Neptune, so far, far away. She's egg-shaped and she rotates end to end. She is the Hawaiian goddess of fertility, or that's what the planet was named for. She can birth from any part of her body, and her orbit cycle is 283 years. Profound. Interesting and extraordinary to the change of signs for Haumea was on October 22nd, we recognized the Venus star point in the last degree of Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus, so there's some significance there as well. While star points themselves are not uncommon, they typically occur once a year. This year there were two, the first one in January, the second one in Libra on the 22nd of October. Venus has not created the final star point in Libra since the 1770s. Again, extraordinary. The Venus star point on October 22nd was conjunct the Sun and Haumea at the last degree of Libra. On the 25th, there was a new Moon Solar Eclipse in Scorpio at 2 degrees. It was conjunct the Sun. Very powerful eclipse season, I would say. Then on November the 8th, we had a very powerful full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus, conjunct Uranus. Powerful shifts out of nowhere, again, continuing that energy from the star point, but most importantly, regeneration. Then on October 12th, as mentioned earlier, Haumea entered Scorpio, ushering in spiritual transformations and rebirth. Scorpio's deep dive of this heart-centered regenerative energy will accelerate your timelines. Let's back up even further and talk a little bit more about Haumea and her transit through various signs. Because of her cycle, her year orbit cycle, 283 years to orbit. She was in Cancer from 1900, retrograded back and forth till 01, but then stayed in Cancer until 1926-28. That's a water sign. In 1928, she entered Leo and stayed there in that fire sign until 1958 to 1960. Then she entered Virgo in 1958 to 1960. That's when she was bouncing back and forth in her retrograde cycle, and she continued in Virgo until 1992 to 1994. Of significance to me relative to that transit in the earth sign of Virgo, she brought a collective group of people who were birthed with Haumea in Virgo. They were very earth-centered, earth-focused. It really, truly was the birth of the hippie movement. Then she moved on to Libra. 1992 to 1994, again, the retrograde cycle. So she's going to move into Libra, then come back out, then move back into Libra for her final stay from till 2022-2023. She now has changed signs. Prior to changing signs, Haumea in Libra speaks about balance, relationships, in terms of Earth. Save the Planet was born. We are not in balance, as we know, as well as other polarized themes are beginning to present. So now comes Scorpio season. It is a water sign. She will remain in Scorpio until 2049, 2050. She is truly in her element. Again, a water sign. It's time for a deep dive of passion, exposing truths, as true Scorpios do, with that intensity for accelerated transformation. Remember, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, and we've talked before about the square between Pluto and Haumea, and a T-square with Eris and Aries. Scorpio speaks of detoxification, and I think we're going to begin to see the detoxification of all the imbalances that presented during Libra season. And it's time now to make that shift, make that change. Now let's talk a little bit more about that aspect, the square specifically with Pluto and Capricorn. Now, Haumea, when square with Pluto and Capricorn, exposes and brings attention to the destruction and drilling down of top-down authority, those systems that were bastardized, that were ruined by folks that aligned more with greed and power versus trying to make things better for the collective. The square, even though it's a square, we're being asked to do something. They are working together as Pluto exposes and destructs all that needs to be destructed, and Haumea is working with that energy to regenerate a pure form of new Earth. While we're talking about outer planets, although I am going to group Pluto in the outer planets, Pluto leaves Capricorn to begin its retrograde dance in March of 2023. Pluto will enter the sign of Aquarius. Again, like I mentioned, Pluto itself has a 248-year orbit cycle, slightly behind Haumea. I'm excited for Pluto to enter Aquarius, and that dance, the retrograde dance, in and out of Aquarius back to Capricorn, then into Aquarius, will end on November 19th of 2024. I truly do believe by then Capricorn's top-down authority, the drilling down and the exposing of all of the misaligned power should be wrapping up by November of 2024. Now, let's talk a little bit about Pluto. Pluto, it stands for power, and when it enters a sign, it signifies power. Now, by the time it leaves a sign, it's going to expose the imbalances of power. Now, with that said, relative to the age of Aquarius, and it's fortified by Pluto's entry to that sign, I think we can look forward to power to the people. That's exciting to me. That's a huge shift from top-down authority to the people making conscious choices for the greater good of all. It's time to find your voice, use your voice, and create communities for the greater good that supports the collective. Now, Haumea in Scorpio is opposite Taurus. Taurus stands for the earth. With Uranus still in that sign until 2026, this opposition is going to become tandem. They will work together as well. Perhaps we'll see some more earth events. I have noticed an uptick, not necessarily in the shifting of tectonic plates and earthquakes, but more so the intensity of those earthquakes. Because Haumea births new earth, perhaps we'll see volcanoes, new volcanoes erupting, exposing the inner earth for new earth. I think we're going to see this regeneration for the purpose of restoring Gaia to her pristine self. How exciting is that? Now, let's wrap it up with some interesting outer planet aspects at this time that really truly do signify new Earth. We talked about Pluto. Pluto has that 248-year orbit cycle, and that it's going to enter Aquarius March of 2023 and retrograde back and forth, and then finally enter Aquarius November of 24. Neptune has a 165-year orbit, is going to enter Aries in 2023 this year, and then finalize being in Aries in 2024. That's just around the corner. Saturn has a 29.5-year orbit and will enter Aquarius finally for the last time in 2024 after retrogrades this year. Uranus has an 84-year cycle and will enter Gemini in 2026. Jupiter has a 12-year orbit cycle and will enter its new sign finally after this current retrograde cycle. What does all that mean? That means that the outer planets, again, I'm throwing Pluto in there, are all changing signs within a 3-year time frame. When you're talking about planets that have 248 year, 165 year, 29.5 year, 84 years, 12-year orbit cycles, they all are changing signs. Very interesting to me. Those outer planets signify the collective consciousness. Remember, we did discuss this before. The inner planets, your Mercury, Venus, Mars, relate to the self. Those outer planets relate to the collective. So what can we expect with all of these planets changing sign? It's a rapid acceleration of a shift in perception and consciousness. I'm feeling it. I was absolutely buzzing this morning. It could be that I'm in Sedona and there is a vortex near, perhaps, but I also believe that it is this shift in consciousness that is occurring that really, really, really got kicked off when Haumea entered Scorpio. It's time to dig deep. It's time to regenerate Earth and expose any secrets for the purpose of restoring Gaia to her pristine self. You may be feeling a sense of regeneration yourself. Go with it. Find your voice. Create a community. The huge sense of collective consciousness with all these planets shifting within a 3-year span, it's our time. It's our time. Finally, Sagittarius season begins this week. Sagittarius is all about optimism and ruled by planet Jupiter. Jupiter goes direct this week and will continue its direct motion until it enters the next sign, which will be Aries. It's been bouncing back and forth as retrograde, but that planet, again, an outer planet, is going to change signs soon. I hope that this information will provide for you, wherever you are on your journey, a sense of optimism in the days to come. There are better days ahead. Have a pleasant day. Namaste.